Welcome back to Switch to Linux. We have another outdoor philosophy, and today we are going to, I think, wrap up the last room in our house as far as our minimizing, and we're going to talk about minimizing the kitchen. And the reason I saved this one for last is this one, no matter what, we tend to get over cluttered at times. It might be the place where we drop our car keys depending on which door we enter the house, but more often I'm talking about things like gadgets, appliances, excess ingredients, and a lot of other little things like that. So I actually have some friends. First, let's talk about the appliance end. So I have some friends that they actually classically have about everything that is as made for TV. It wasn't that they set out to do that. It just kind of slowly became a joke. They bought one or two things and it slowly became a joke. And they end up with like 50 appliances for little things, bagel makers and chocolate fountains and bread machines and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things about having all of this type of stuff is you need a place to store it. They take a lot of electricity. They're very heavy weight. If you ever need to move, it just takes forever to move and pack and store all these things. Lots of space to store them all. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to actually ask ourselves and assess, do we actually need all of these appliances, or is it okay if we just drop some of these? And there are definitely some things. Remember, minimizing and the philosophy of minimalism itself is not just getting rid of all your stuff. A lot of people have that misconception. It is about utilizing only those things and keeping only those things that are specifically relevant to your life. Now, if you don't make waffles on a regular part of your life, you probably don't need a waffle machine, to be perfectly honest with you. It's questions like that. Do we need a bagel maker? I ask myself, do you need a bread machine? Do you know how easy it actually is to make bread? In fact, on my other channel on home cooking hacks, I actually have recipes for how to make bread without a bread machine, without any special equipment, and it doesn't take any longer. I mean, it is convenient dumping all the ingredients in, pushing in one button, and then 3 hours later the thing's done. Making bread without that is slightly more involved, but not significantly. And those are those things that we need to ask ourselves. Particularly, what machines and equipment do we need? So, I found myself at my peak. I think I had a waffle iron, which I did not buy. It was a gift on a waffle iron. I think I had popcorn machine. I had, a toaster and a toaster oven. I had did I mention the bread machine yet? A juicer. I think I had 2 juicers at one point in time. And there's probably a lot more if I just kind of got to keep thinking and digging. But and even then, I didn't accumulate a lot of stuff, in all honesty. I've never accumulated a lot. But it came to the point where I bought a bread maker, then I started eating more bread, and then I started getting fat because eating a lot of bread isn't good for you. So get rid of the bread machine. I haven't got rid of... I am down to what I have right now, the things that I would regularly use. I have a single juicer. I have one of those like George Foreman type grills because it's fast and efficient to cook up some types of dishes in those. And I have a food chopper and a blender and a toaster oven. I think that's all I'm down to. And I found that unless you have specific needs on certain things, it's not worth having a whole lot more than those. But again, it depends on your individual lifestyle. Now, my friends, they throw a lot of parties. So it's cool and convenient having a couple bread machines and, and a chocolate fountain and all that kind of stuff. It's neat and convenient to have all of those to entertain the people. So if you're a guy that entertains a lot of people, absolutely, you might need or want more and more of those types of things. In fact, I even considered things. Oh, I also have a crock pot. I also considered getting a smaller crock pot because I've been experimenting with some good homemade baked beans recipes. It'd be nice to have a much smaller crock pot. So I have a big crock pot and a small crock pot for some of those other things. And even making smaller batches of soup wouldn't be a bad thing either. So I've been toying with the idea of potentially getting a second one of those. But again, everything is, you're asking the questions, what do you really need? I found that I don't really care for waffles. And so having a waffle machine really wasn't worth it for me. So I donated that. Why did I end up with 2 juicers? Well, I got a cheap juicer just to try it out, see if I wanted to do juicing or not. And it turned out that, yeah, I did. So I invested a little bit more in a better juicer. I got rid of the cheaper one. Popcorn maker, that's easy. A big pot will make popcorn on your stove just as well and efficiently as a popcorn maker will, so it's easy to get rid of that one. Bread machine, easy to get rid of that. I have a video about how you can make bread without the bread machine. Let's see, coffee pot, got rid of that. Use a French press instead. Much smaller in space, much more versatile, and frankly, much better coffee. Let's see, what else is there? Those are those questions that you ask yourself. Of course, if you are into a lot of specialty cooking, you might need a food processor, stuff like that. But ask yourself these questions. Look at all of your appliances and ask, do you need all of these appliances? I found a toaster oven and a toaster were silly, redundant appliances. I got rid of the toaster because the toaster oven also allows me to do small batches of cookies. A lot more things. I can do garlic bread a whole lot better. A lot of things that I would otherwise do in an oven, which the toaster oven is a whole lot more efficient than the regular oven for those types of things. And so ask yourself those questions. Look at all your appliances. Get rid of the appliances that are extra. Get yourself down to just a couple easy to transport appliances that are fairly small, and that's really one of the best ways that you can accomplish that. Next, let's look at ingredients. There are times we all accumulate things. In fact, if I go through my cabinets right now, I will probably find things in there from when I first moved out on my own almost 20 years ago. That's a little crazy. But we all have that type of stuff. In fact, sometimes it's fun to dig through your cabinet and go, wow, this is old. Let's see if we can find an expiration date. Oh, 1996? Cool. And actually, a cousin of mine was a student in West Virginia, which is known for their parties. Well, in their frat house once, they were cleaning out the refrigerator, and they found milk in there that was so old, it was actually almost a year old. So they said, why not? Let's throw a birthday party for the milk. I mean, don't do that. I mean, for sure. Get rid of the milk if it's that old. But one of the strategies for minimizing all that stuff without just getting rid of extra things is take a look at all these extra spices that you have, and then do some internet searches for recipes using those types of things. Just find some recipes that use that extra stuff that you never use. Get it out of there. Get it out of there. Get things reduced down. Organization might be on key for some people, so you might want to buy like a spice organizer and keep things nice and neatly organized that way. It really depends on what you call organization and minimizing. Another thing, look at your dishes, look at your china. If you have tons and tons of china and dishes that you never use, why use them? Why have them? And I realize some people want those for specialty events, special dinners. That's okay. But if they're just decoration, man, they're expensive, crazy knickknacks. Get them bad boys out of there. And then silverware. Do you have excess amounts of silverware, excess amounts of cooking utensils, excess amount of these things? I found I actually got rid of probably about 50 different cooking utensils because of the amount of redundancy I had in them all. So look into that type of stuff. Pots and pans. Do you have an excessive amounts of pots and pans? Look into all this stuff because we tend to accumulate stuff like that over the years. And it's good to get in there, look at what you have, and just get rid of the things that are not necessarily the things that you absolutely need. So look at your appliances, look at your ingredients, and then other things, make sure you're not keeping a lot of stuff plugged in the kitchen. When I had my house out west, I had, built-in, the big built-in stove, the big built-in microwave, they both had a clock. They were both in the same direction. Do I really need 2 appliances telling me the time right next to each other? No. So I just turned off the display on the microwave. That saved a little bit of power. If you have your coffee pots, if you have your toasters, if you have, all these little things that you have determined are important for your life, here's a fun tip. Don't keep anything plugged in ever. Your stove or your stove should stay plugged in if you have an electric stove. Your refrigerator should stay plugged in, obviously. There is nothing else that you really need to have plugged in. Maybe if you specifically use the auto timer on your coffee pot, you might keep that plugged in. I've had those auto timer coffee pots. I didn't really care for them. Now, of course, haven't lived on a wake up at 7 a.m. schedule for about a decade, so for me, I kind of get up when I get up, so it was, not necessarily convenient to have the thing start making my coffee for me. But really, do we even need that? Is it that much difficult to go over and push a button when you get up in the morning? I don't know. Those are decisions that you need to make for yourself, obviously. But keep all those appliances unplugged, because if you remember when we talked about this is kind of back before it snowed, even a while back, when we started this whole minimalism outdoor philosophy series, we talked about the electricity and the ghost power. Realize that the average home, over 20% of the power consumption in your home is called ghost power. It's just from stuff staying plugged in that doesn't need to stay plugged in. If you got phone chargers, keep them unplugged. Coffee pots, keep them unplugged. So I actually have one. I spend part of my day on my break away from the computers is spending more time in the kitchen than an average person might spend in the kitchen. And in light of that, in light of saying that, one of the things that I've always do is I have a set of stereo speakers in there so that I can plug in an MP3 player and listen to stuff while I'm in there. Even those I keep unplugged, even though I use them, oftentimes twice a day, breakfast and dinner. I don't do lunch, breakfast and dinner. I keep those unplugged. It's not a hassle to go in, plug those in right at the time that I'm using them. So that's the other thing in your kitchen is double check to make sure you're not having an excessive amounts of appliances perpetually plugged in. If you don't need that toaster, 23 hours and 42 minutes in the day, keep it unplugged. If you got to have your toast or your Pop-Tarts in the morning, plug the toaster in, put the Pop-Tarts in, put them in there. You will actually cut your power bill down quite a bit. I mean, it's amazing. Look at all those things, not just in your kitchen, but in your whole house. Unplug the things that you don't need plugged in. So there we've covered our appliances. We covered things plugged in. We've covered the spice cabinets, the ingredient cabinets. I guess maybe the last thing is sometimes our refrigerators accumulate things. And I have seen people pile up, excess recipes, excess things in cookbooks and piled over. And I mean, I'm guilty of that right now, as I'm always experimenting with new recipes. So I have things on notepads here and there. I really need to invest in organizing the kitchen just a little bit better. I think a little bit more of the time, and that way it'll turn out a little bit better in the long run. But those are those types of things you can do in minimizing. So thanks for coming along for this outdoor philosophy. If you'd like to help support the channel, check out switchtolinux.com/support to learn about how you can currently help support us. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.